Midway 2019 is a hot CGI mess of a film from the master disaster Roland Emmerich that proves he's probably lost a step, along with this film just being something that should never have been made. Midway stars an ensemble cast including Ed Skrein, Patrick Wilson, Luke Evans, Woody Harrelson, Dennis Quaid, Nick Jonas, along with a few others thrown in there. Alexander Ludwig's in it for a little bit. It really is just one of those films that they kind of packed in everybody they could possibly think of and their mother and put them into this film. It even has Mandy Moore in it for a little bit. And it's just not a very good film. It's one that the story of the Battle of Midway has been told multiple times, and they kind of did their own little rendition with this one. It is considered an independent film for, because it was made independent of the Hollywood studio system, but it's still a film that had a $100 million budget. And I don't want to say I can't tell what they spent their budget on. I could tell they spent it on a lot of the CGI effects, but a lot of the CGI effects were not very good. Basically, what they did is they completely reshot the entire bombing of Pearl Harbor scene, all done with CGI. That's where Alexander Ludwig's character is at. He's in it for a little bit. The ships burn, things like that. They're destroyed by the Japanese. And then from there, it kind of speeds up to a couple small little skirmishes in the South Pacific that would eventually lead up to the Battle of Midway. And that's when you have the fighter pilots, mainly Luke Wilson, along with Ed Skrein's character. They are some fighter pilots that's stationed on the USS Enterprise that is originally ran by Admiral Halsey, who is Dennis Quaid in this film. Woody Harrelson is Chester Nimitz, who is about 20 minutes or so into the film, he's promoted to the head of Pacific Fleet Command and sent out to Pearl Harbor. Well, the film kind of, it bounces around a little bit. It tries to kind of show some of the internal struggles with the soldiers along with their families as they're, going out to sea for several months at a time. They're coming back, so their home life's not very well, along with the fact that a lot of them lost friends and loved ones during the attack on Pearl Harbor. But it just doesn't do a very good job of it because a lot of the dialogue is really ham-fisted. It seems that anytime someone speaks, they are basically given this little pump-up speech or supposed to be a real powerful speech that they're giving, and it falls flat because literally almost all of the dialogue is like this. There's never really one moment where they give a coherent speech at the end to pump anybody up. It does a decent job of kind of cutting over and showing the Japanese side of things, and some of those were probably some of the better moments in the film when they would cut over to the Japanese. There's one instance where when they tried to attack the carriers at Midway, the Japanese carriers, a American bomber shot down, and you can see it because it looks like the bomber's coming directly at the carrier, and then at the last moment, one of the Japanese soldiers is on the gun, and he shoots it, and it causes it to shift slightly, and when it shifts, it misses the carrier. And a guy, another Japanese soldier looks at his leader and he's like, were they trying to ram us? And he kind of laughs a little bit and he's like, Americans aren't that brave. His controls must have been stuck. And you can see that there is some kind of fear in his eyes because the Japanese were not opposed to kamikaze attacks. They're basically just sacrificing their soldiers to turn their planes into weapons when they're shot down because they had no intention of returning to base, so they would just fly their planes directly into the ships. And that was a decent part in the film, but again, it's almost immediately bookended by these different big speeches that people are trying to give while encouraging people. Luke Evans is doing his best to try to give a solid performance in here, but again, he kind of falls into the common pitfalls of these big speeches where he'll talk one time, try to pump some folks up, but it doesn't quite work. Ed Skrein's character, he plays Dick Best, is a fighter pilot who is one of only two people to ever bomb two carriers in the same day during wartime, and he's pretty good in the film, but it's a lot of the stuff is really ham-fisted. He's, you can tell they got him doing a bunch of these crazy accents, and a lot of the accents don't really work. Even Nick Jonas's character, he's playing like this Italian guy, Bruno Guido, something like that, and he's just not very good in this film, along with the vast majority of the other actors in it. Even the throwaway roles like Alexander Ludwig in this film is just kind of like, okay. I can see it, but it's just not very good. And like I said, it's pretty much a hot mess from beginning to end. From the point that they start attacking Pearl Harbor, you can see it. It's a pretty decent CGI shot of them, blowing up most of the ships at Pearl Harbor, with a lot of the ships on fire and then sinking down below the waves and stuff. So it gives you a little bit of emotional resonance, but it's not able to carry that through because so much of the film is done with a green screen. Even a lot of the scenes where they're on top of a ship, you can see just approximately 10-15 feet back from the main actors. You can see that it's completely CGI and doesn't really make a lot of sense, or it doesn't really blend very well in the film. And that was probably my biggest dislike with the film, that it is just such a CGI mess. It's one of these films that's quite forgettable, along with kind of the pacing and stuff for it, because it's almost 2 hours long, and they really draw out the point of getting to the Battle of Midway. I mean, I think that happens approximately an hour and 30 minutes into it, and then the Battle of Midway takes about 25 minutes or so, and then afterwards there's about a little 5 to 10 minute cool down period where basically they just have the soldiers return back to Pearl Harbor. The Ed Skrein character, you find out that he can no longer fly anymore, and like the last 5-6 minutes of the film, they do this little bit where they'll focus in on somebody, they'll do a freeze frame, and some words will come up describing what happened to him. Bull Halsey, he would go on to become a 5-star admiral, commander of the fleet, one of only like 4 people to hold that rank, along with Nimitz. And it's kind of like, you didn't really need it. I mean, you kind of set up too many characters that way, or to where they didn't really have an ability to go back in and focus on them at the end. It just seemed kind of like a little bit of service to try to note everybody that was in the film. So it really suffered from just having too many people, too much CGI, and not enough, emotional or individual connection to things. Like there's a number of scenes where they're all sitting around eating, and they each kind of give like a little big speech, so to speak, and it just doesn't work for me. Would I recommend this film? No, I wouldn't recommend this film. I think if you want to see a good film, go back to the older films back in the day. Some of the movies, or one of the little short films that John Ford made, and they even have John Ford pop up in this film during the Battle of Midway while he's out there filming his documentary. That's probably something that you would better watch. Or if you're looking for something that gives kind of comparable weight to both sides, Flags of Our Fathers and Letter to Iwo Jima, the dual films by Clint Eastwood about 10-12 years ago or so, those two are far superior films than this, and I would recommend those over this one. And really, like I said, this is a forgettable film that somebody wasted $100 million on. They even cram in the Doolittle raid. They just had too much stuff they were trying to put in this film, and it really hampered it down and slowed it down. And you could tell the script needed a lot more work. Like I said, I wouldn't recommend this. Other than that, thank you. Feel free to like, subscribe, and share, and have a good day.